So some housekeeping items that I would like to tell you. Please put all your question and answers at the end of the session and we'll have it answered. Also, please keep your lines on mute. All right. And what is that you can expect about from this webinar? Well, before that, I'd just like to tell you about myself. So I'm called Parth Sathi. I'm a professional design thinking certified profession. I have around 14 years of experience in user interaction, and I'm also leading the product design part. Okay. So what do you expect out of this webinar? You can basically get some understanding of design thinking at the end of this. We'll also take some question answers. Design thinking is all about practicing, and this image actually depicts that. So here I'm actually trying to say that it is like cooking, and I would say that unless you don't practice, you will not get your dish right. So similarly, design thinking is all about practice. So as I say this because you have to experience design thinking. But I assure at the end of the webinar, you would have some better understanding of what design thinking is and how you can use it in your future assignments. Well, when I started, this design thinking was all new, though I had 14 years of experience in corporate and in design industry. For me, when I first heard about this buzzword called design thinking, I was like wondering, what is this? From a boardroom of IBM, Google, everyone's talking about this new and unknown language. So for me, it was like, what is this? I mean, did I miss something? Being in the field for so many years, this was quite mysterious for me. Surely, if it had value, I would have heard about it somewhere or from someone. And then I actually started diving deep down to understand what is design thinking all about. And then I realized that design thinking is nothing much but a practice, a best practice in doing what industries and designers have been doing in the past, but in a very systematic and unorganized way. So it is nothing, it is not just designing user interfaces, but it is more towards a practice in or a process that you follow to come up with a design. So here is an example that I'm showing in this picture. You would see on the left side there are these cubes which are just laid randomly, and on the right you would see the same actually laid in a systematic and very organized way. Well, design thinking tends to encompass two areas, that is mindset plus process. It brings in new mentality in solving business problems. If you work in a field,
we are unable to see your screen. Can you please share your screen?
Oh, is it?
Yeah, we are unable to see anything.
All right, let me just hold on for a second. Let me just get the organizer.
I am able to see.
My apologies. My apologies. Just hold on for a second. All right. So, the organizer, can you please just help us with the users who are unable to see the screen? Because I believe some of them are able to see and some are not.
Actually, on my screen, I'm just able to see the alphabets, maybe the like initials of the participants.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm able to see. Okay, just a moment.
All right.
Partha, would you like to unshare and share?
Relog in again? For people who are unable to see, I request you to please relog in again. I'll pause here for a minute. I would suggest and recommend for people who are unable to see, please re-log in, and we're going to start the session from where we have actually left or where we are right. So for people who are already in, we'll just give the others a minute and then we'll start from here.
Hi, Parthad. Just one question. This presentation you'll be able to share us after the session, or?
Yes, please share your email IDs and then we'll send the presentation.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, still not able to see again the same set of alphabets like initials of the participants. I really don't know what to do at my end.
How many people are able to see this? How many? If you're able to, you should be able to see a chess board with chess coins on it. I mean, how many? Okay, some are able to see, some are unable to.
Not able to see, only the alphabets.
I can see it clear.
I'll try doing one thing. Possibly I'll change the presenter and then change it back to Partha. Maybe that should help. Just give me 10 seconds, guys, please. Are you able to see any screen, guys? Everybody?
It shows that webinar all about design thinking, organizer Pranshu and presenter Pranshu.
I see the same, yes. And now
Did Pranshu share his screen? Any chance?
One second, sorry. Okay, Sayani is asking if I could make Sayani the presenter. I will try to make Sayani the presenter and we'll see how it goes.
But when we make attendee 60 as a new presenter, they should accept it. Then only we can see.
I have given the control to Sayani and she says it is not working. Okay, let me see. Okay, I'll try to make Partha the presenter again.
Yeah, we see some calculator. Okay.
Oh.
Yes, I can see now.
You can see now?
Yeah, whoever was not able to see, they can see
Yes,
some global GoTo meeting.
December 31st.
Okay, I will try to make Partha.
Yes, I can also. Oh, it's okay. Now I can see the chessboard slide.
Okay,
Yep.
Great. That's a good news. Can we continue now?
Yep.
Okay. Partha,
Yeah,
please continue. Thanks
All
for
right.
bearing with us,
sure.
guys. Thank you.
All right. My sincere apologies for people who were unable to see it, but we are glad that we are back now. And yeah, so where did I live? So where did I leave? Yeah. So this is where I mean, design thinking tends to encompass two main areas. It actually focuses on the mindset and the process, and it brings in the new mentality in solving business problems. I mean, if you work in a field of user experience, I mean, all the user experience guys would have this mentality and they would know the mindset, and this word would actually sound very familiar for them. And for people who are from the other disciplines, I mean, it may sound like a revelation, but it moves away from the project plan, committee meeting, and specifications. So these are, something new that we actually incorporate in design thinking, and you would know what it is as we move forward. So, what is design thinking? I mean, I'll just keep it very simple. I would say it's like finding fresh, creative solution to a problem, but in a way that it actually meets people's needs first. And it's a very handy phase used to understand people's real problems and needs, and then you cater to those needs and find a proper or an appropriate solution in a way that it actually satisfies the user and meets his requirement. So just to keep it very crisp, I would define it as understanding people and then solving their problems in an appropriate way. Well, design thinking is rather an abstract concept. There are many ways in actually interpreting design thinking. You would see that there are many uh, similarities between the one that we are seeing here with and the 5 years process. But this has been very successful, the 5-step process that you see on the screen. And most of the organizations are successful in implementing this, and they've got real great results. So what does it include? It actually includes empathy, the first step. As a designer and in the design process, you actually come across empathy where you develop a deep understanding of the challenges that you face from a customer or a user. And the second step is a define stage where you actually articulate the problem. You try to define a problem. The third is the ideate, where and once you get the problem, you actually brainstorm it and trying to come up with a solution. The fourth is a prototype. This is where the UI steps in. He actually comes up with rough and quick prototypes that really help in iterating. And the last step is the test, where you actually take on the feedbacks and then iterate again based on the user's feedback. All right. So the first thing, what is empathy? I mean, I would actually quote Steve Jobs' words here. He says, "Design is a funny word. Some people think design means how it looks, but of course, if you dig deeper, it really is how it works." So empathy is in the same lines. It is actually a centerpiece of human-centric design process. We first have to find the right questions before we actually start creating a solution. This is why the first phase of empathy is very important. And how do we actually come up with the empathy map? We actually have these 3 steps in empathy that connects you with the people and seek stories and understand what their real pain point and problems are. So in this stage of empathy, the user experience designer or the team of design thinkers actually observe the user, what people do and how they interact with an environment or a product that they are actually working on. This gives you an idea about what actually they think and feel. It also helps you learn about their real needs and problems. The second stage is you keep them engaged. There are formats of interviews based on the product that you are actually doing a design thinking for. And these formats basically are interview formats, but you shouldn't just make it as an interview process, but it should be more like a conversation. Prepare some questions that you like to ask, keep the conversations very loose and open, and always have a why fund in your question. So you should always think why the user is actually doing this, what is the outcome of it, what sort of issues he's facing. That would actually give you a deeper meaning and make you understand what the user is actually going through. So combining observation and engagement, here you actually tend to listen to them. You actually try to understand more as what and why they are doing this. Ask them what's going through their mind as they perform a task, right? Sorry. Then comes the define stage. And define is basically you are articulating the problem. And in this phase of design thinking, we will focus on becoming aware of people's needs and development insights. So this is a stage where actually we come up with a map, and you keep the user in the center and you try to understand what he's actually saying about a product, or what is he thinking about a product, or how does he feel while he's actually using the product, and what are his behaviors while he's actually using the product. So these kind of insights can be captured on this stage. And it is there's a very common phase which we actually use in define stage, which is how might we. Is often defined, it actually gives you a define of point of view, which is a statement what the user actually needs and what are his insights. Moving forward, how do you actually define it? So considering what stood out of the observations that you got and what patterns emerged, you get a sense of what you actually have to come up with. If you notice some interesting things about a user while he's doing it, ask the question that what he is doing, what sort of problem is going through. Asking why is actually a good behavior and a feeling that you make connection with the user, and also in a large context you try to understand it. So in the define stage, or how you define it, your goal should be to have a meaningful and actionable statement and articulate that as a problem of a user. Address the insights that you have, and then you actually focus on their particular need of a person, what he's actually going through. Then comes the ideate stage. Once you actually gather the information from the empathy and the define stage, this is where you actually come up with and start ideating. And this is more a creative way, and you tend to actually come up with some interesting findings from what you have actually understood about a product or a solution, sorry, a product and about a user. So in define mode, we actually determine this meaningful challenges that we got. And in ideate mode, we are actually focusing on generating solutions to those challenges. So here in ideate mode, the design process in which you actually concentrate are the ideas that have been generated out of the workshop. So if you look at this image, you actually see that there are these post-its randomly pasted across. And in this mode, actually the design process in which you actually provide both fuel and also the source material to build a prototype. So this is a stage before prototyping where you actually ideate and bring in as many ideas as you can, and then try to filter them out and see what actually meets the user requirement, or at least if not exactly the requirement, but at least you can come up with a prototype. It actually gives you a heads up in going to the next stage to define a prototype, what and how you can actually meet up with the user's requirement. And this is a stage where you actually go to the prototype mode. And prototype is can be done in many ways. You can just roughly sketch anything, or you can do a end-to-end sketch model based on your bandwidth or the time frame that you have. But the ideal scenario is you do the roughs as quickly as you can, so that gives you a heads up and also gives you ample time to actually iterate it on a granular level. Once you actually do this prototypes, you can actually walk them through the user. You can create a scenario and a storyboard, which is actually a good start. And then once you walk them, or once you present your prototypes, you would always get a feedback, and that is when you can actually capture the emotions and response from a user. And how to prototype? I mean, there are a lot of tools. So while you are actually prototyping, I've come up with this nice word which says, if a picture is worth 1,000 words, a prototype is worth 1,000 pictures. So it is always good to have as many prototypes as you can. You just sketch it, or you can just create using the tools that we have it online. And you should always keep in mind that what you are prototyping for, and you should always have a user in mind, and these questions should always be there. What do you hope to test with the user? What sort of behavior do you expect once you actually present the prototype to the user? And this answering these questions will help you focus on prototyping and help you receive meaningful feedback in the testing phase, so which is the next phase. So once you actually are done with the prototyping, it gives you more meaningful feedbacks. Once you show it to the customer, once you present it, they will have a feedback, which are taken into the testing phase, which is nothing but the last phase of the entire design thinking process. And in testing phase, basically what happens is you come across a lot of iterations. This is a stage where you actually provide or iterate your designs in a better or in a refined way. And the purpose of testing is to learn what works and what doesn't work. So this also gives you a clear picture on terms of the navigation patterns, the behavior of a user. This also defines, this is a stage where you can actually again go back and define the platforms. So if it is a web or if it is a mobile application, those kind of detailing you can actually get into testing. And in testing, you do as many prototypes as you can and then present it. And once you present your prototype, let the prototype speak rather than we actually trying to present it. So in today's scenario, most of the prototypes are interactive. That is how actually the prototypes speak. And from that, you can actually define and get feedbacks. You should always be open-minded, take ideas, take feedbacks, but at the end, you should try to filter out what is really the need of the user. And in the feedback process also, you should always, if it is a one-to-one, you should listen carefully, capture all the feedbacks, and ideate again back into the cycle of design thinking. So with this, I mean, I come to the end of the design thinking process, but there are things that I would like to also talk about, which are the tools. And design thinking does not, I mean, cost much for an organization. And online tools now that you see, InVision, Sketch, XD, Photoshop, all these are some of the tools that helps us in actually doing these prototypes and defining the entire design thinking cycle. It gives you a vast scope to do iterations, and at least at a very minimal cost. I mean, imagine if it was a factory and you actually get raw material, and then you get the resources, you build a factory, and then something goes wrong. Then you're going to pay a price. But in this scenario, we are just playing with pixels, and fundamentally pixels are just free of cost. So the design thinking itself is a very ideal way of presenting your entire product or a solution, which will really not cost much to an organization. and you can iterate at any time. And the advantages are also there. In design thinking, we no longer need to avoid or worry about failures, because you can still iterate it, and we can learn so much from the failure that you actually improve upon it. And all kind of organizations are beginning to realize this. They don't need to take a risk averse in the digital world, and they actually do an experiment type of work. This mentality, or in all kinds of different circumstances and establishments, actually roll out new products and services. And it is an attitude one can apply as much as, from a small startup to a design studio. This design thinking gives you an ample fragility and scope to iterate and improve on, as this is mostly like an experimental stage, right? So with this, yeah, I conclude the entire design thinking flow, and we are still having a lot of time in hand, but I'm welcoming all the question and answers that you guys have. Any questions that you have, you can just post it, and whatever is feasible, I'll be able to answer them.
Partha, one question. Normally, as I understand that this design thinking workshop or activity is done when all the stakeholders are there in the same room. What do you say in case the stakeholders, key stakeholders are at remote locations? How often they need to collaborate? Is there a possibility to collaborate through an online tool somehow? So in this scenario, what do you say?
Yes, that has always been a challenge, that not all are sitting under the same roof. There are online tools. There are a lot of design thinking tools. There are empathy maps. There are ethnography maps, which are used across, which are actually used for these kind of workshops. So you don't need to sit under or in one boardroom. You can anytime get onto those tools and give you feedback or follow the entire design thinking process. So that is a new trend of collaborating and working together remotely. Yes, of course, there are a lot of tools available.
Okay, and is there a editor or a profile who can manipulate and take care of all the stakeholders' question, answer, and take control during the discussions, or there is no such kind of profile needed? It's an open thing where everybody, if they know about design thinking, they can collaborate with each other. There is no need of a single moderator, or is there a need of a moderator?
It depends upon the product or the service that you are working for. If you have identified there are real owners or the users for a product, then definitely their feedback values a lot. And if you think there's something new and then there are a lot of ideas, and anybody can become a member of a design thinking group, then it is totally up to them actually how they actually take it. But in terms of if I get it right, you're saying how is it open to others? It is a cycle. Any person who's actually using a product or a service, they can be a user, and their feedback also values a lot for design thinking process.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions? Well, I guess we are good then. Please leave your email IDs, and I will have someone sending you this presentation over the email so that you can go through it and reach out to us. WalkingTree is always there to, and we actually practice design thinking at our center, so we'll be able to guide you further on this. All right, thanks a lot. Thank you very much for all the time that you have spent. It was really good.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks all.